Hello, everybody. I'm Stephanie from CityBeat, and welcome again to another episode of CityBeat TV and Discover Yucatan with Carlos Sosa. It has been a little bit of a time because we were supposed to have him 2 weeks ago, but then luckily he got called in for the vaccination, so he wasn't able to be with us, but he now has his first vaccination, so yay. But he's back today, and we are going to be discussing the history of Izamal, the history and the culture of Izamal. If any of you have been with me and Carlos Sosa before, you know that he is a wealth of information, and we love having him here on Mid-City. And we've talked about lots of different things in Yucatan having to do with culture, history, nature, the whole spectrum here of what really to know about Yucatan. So I'm excited to have him again. So let's bring him back on. Hello, Carlos.
Hello, long time no see.
Long time no see, right? I know. I was just telling everyone that you were supposed to be with us 2 weeks ago because our show is every 2 weeks. And you couldn't come because you had to get your vaccination.
Yes, I did the first shot.
Wow. So how did that go?
Everything okay. Just a little bit of headache the next day, but it only lasted about 4 hours and I was gone. Not even fever.
Wow. Well, good. You got a strong immune system.
That could have been the only reaction, or it could be just another thing, because that was the only thing that was different.
Yeah.
But everything seems to be okay. Waiting for the second one.
Right. Yes. Let's see. So you get it in another 3 weeks, 4 weeks?
Supposedly it has to be 3 weeks after the first one, and it's already almost 2 weeks.
Okay.
So by the end of the month or the first week of May.
Right. So yeah, we'll be looking forward to that. And supposedly next month it's the teachers and 50 to 59. So let's hope that that continues.
Yeah, it will. It really will. And soon everyone is going to be already vaccinated. So that is going to be easier life in many ways.
Yes. Hopefully, right? And you and I both can get back to discovering a lot more of Yucatan.
Sure. There will be more activities to be done, and people will free safer, and for sure everything is going to be changing a lot.
Yeah.
Gradually, but it will change.
Right. And it already is. I mean, a lot of it's a big push for local tourism, granted on a small scale. So there's a reduced amount of people that can actually be at different sites and, on tours, etc. But little by little, it's starting to get back.
It takes time, but it will come back.
Yes. And we encourage everybody who's watching to be sure to get out there and support the local tourism and local economy and local tour guides and learn more about this great state. So I want to, I know, Bonnie, it's echoing. That's why we were a little bit late.
It's still going on, and sometimes it's a little bit hard to understand what you say.
Okay, well, I'm not going to say much tonight. Let's give the mic to Carlos, because really he's the one with all the information. So, Carlos, so our topic today is Izamal. So tell us a little bit about the Pueblo Mágico de Izamal.
What about if we begin for the beginning and then we end with the Pueblo Mágico?
Sounds perfect.
Okay. The place where the city of Izamal is now used to be a settlement that began around 750 BC. That was when the first group of Mayas were establishing in that site and creating this society that was growing and growing and growing. But apparently, this part of the settlement took a few centuries before it could be organized. And apparently, the city took the form of an organized city around 450 after Christ. And this is something that carry on a lot of activities, because Izamal became one of the largest cities that was built in the northern part of Yucatan. Seems that the original name was Izmal. That means the morning dew.
Oh,
So
okay.
this city was apparently dedicated and founded by a man who, by a priest who later, when he died, became a god, whose name was Sama or Samna. I'm sorry, it was Samna. So Isamna, it was a name that was given to the god. So the god Isamna is the one who taught Mayas the use of medicine, wisdom, writing, and also the one who gave all this kind of information to people. And he's actually apparently the archaeologist represented in one of the buildings on the central part of Chichen Itza, in the building that is called as the nunnery. There's a section called the annex of the nunnery, and that place on the facade of that part of the building, you can find a figure that is in a lotus position that has been identified as Itzamna. So he's the one that lived in Izamal, and when he died, he became a god and he was worshipped in Izamal. That is the name of the name of Izamal is coming from his name.
Ah.
And it
And
was
so
a city.
what years are we talking about here?
We're talking about supposedly he founded the city around the 400s AD.
Mhm.
And after that, the city became one of the largest, one of the most powerful cities on the northern part of the Yucatan, and even created a different kind of architectural style. This is what is called the megalithic style, because you can see if you have been in Izamal, or when you go to Izamal, you're going to be seeing that the building, the main one that is called the Kinichkakmo, that is actually the third largest building in volume in the whole country. Just the
Right.
one in Cholula, Puebla, then the Pyramid of the Sun right off Mexico City are larger in volume than the one in Izamal. And then the third one is that one, the Kinichkakmo. You can see huge stones with some kind of rounded corners. And that is a style that is totally different, but it can be found in that particular region. There's another place called Ake, which is not too far from Izamal, by Tishkokot, where they make the hammocks and all this kind of craft. And that it has exactly the same type of style. And between Ake and Izamal, there are remains of a sakbe that connected the city. Sakbes they were all over, and there were hundreds of those sakbes connecting different cities. So the problem is with all this growth of the region, new cities, new villages, and all these changes on the environment have made all these sakbes disappear. Very few are left that we can see the remains of them.
Right, right. And the sackbeds were the walkways through.
Were the roads? Remember, some people compare them with the Roman roads, because
Right.
sackbeds was so important for the Mayas. As we all know, they never used the wheel. They never had any kind of animals to be carrying on merchandise or any kind of goods that were transported from one city to another one. So everything had to be done by foot and on the back of the people. So having these sackbeds will ease things, because on the rainy season in certain regions, the jungle and all the floods caused by the rain will be making these paths impossible to walk by. So this kind of sack base easy all this movement of people from one place to another one. So they were in the northern part of Yucatan, in some places taking aerial pictures, you can see some of the lines marking it. Going deeper or going further south, it disappears because of the vegetation. We don't see it any longer.
Right, and you can't see any sackbeds anymore. Or can you see remnants?
Hard to see them. There are a few left, like the one from Izamal to Ake. There's another one from Kaba to Izmal. There's another one from Yaxuna to Coba that is in Quintana Roo, which is so far the longest that has been found in the Yucatan. It's got 106 kilometers of length. And what is amazing about Sakbe is that it's straight. It's like taking a ruler, and just joining the 2 points and tracing a line, and it's only got a slight deviation of 10 degrees, which is nothing. And 106 kilometers, a road that could be that straight, it's an amazing act of engineering, because you will have to have a deep knowledge in astronomy in order to find a way and finally get to the point you want to, and having a road that is totally straight to the next point.
Right.
And a few other which are located in other places that you can see remains, but not so big of, not so long of them. But basically, most of them are gone. So Izamal, once it went through the same kind of development, with the same kind of epochs or periods like the formative, the pre-classical, the classical, and then the post-classical, which is when Izamal is abandoned. Most of the cities start declining around the 900s because of several factors that we once mentioned before. But
Right.
Izamal was exactly going through the same way. And apparently they are linked with also other cities like Chichen Itza and Uxmal, but Uxmal belonged to the same epoch of Izamal, so it could be linked. But with Chichen Itza, probably there was some kind of a connection between Chichen Itza and Izamal when Izamal was declining. Remember that Chichen Itza rose when after the other cities have declined a lot. So they lost all the power, they lost all the organization, and we cannot really compare it with Mayapan. Mayapan is the latest city that was built or was organized and became the ruler. So when Mayapan was on the peak, most likely Izamal and Uxmal and all these major cities were already practically gone. So it's hard to believe that there could have been some kind of a relation between them. But Izamal kept being inhabited by some of the people that never left. What happens is, in the case of Izamal, the rulers of the city, they either died or disappeared or left. They moved to other places because of the collapse of agriculture, because of the long droughts, internal wars, and also wars against other cities. So all that made the cities to collapse. So when the Spanish arrived to this region around the 1527, which is officially the time when the Spanish arrived to Yucatan, Izamal was inhabited, but it was a city that was just surviving. There wasn't anything spectacular or relevant that was being practiced by them. But as happened always, the Spanish established where there was people that they needed a labor in order to build new houses, in order to start developing their own buildings or their own city.
Right. So how was that encounter when the Spanish came to Izamal?
Well, they arrived, and when they arrived, as I told you, as I just mentioned, that the cities were disorganized, they were not really strong, they could not really present any resistance. And most of them, they didn't present any resistance to most of the Spanish. And besides that, they have experience already of what happened in the Valley of Mexico, the Aztecs with Tenochtitlan and the rest of the cities, that Cortés, because of the information that he got from Malintzin, that was called La Malinche, and from Jerónimo de Aguilar, who translated from Maya to Spanish, because he already learned how to speak Maya. So Cortés was able to know exactly what was the situation, where there was a ruling city, a ruling group, a ruling culture that was the Aztecs, and Cortés offered to the other tribes that were dominated by the Aztecs his help, his support in order to fight against the Aztecs and free them. So that's why many of these cities joined Cortés. There's a saying that we have in Mexico, that the conquest of Mexico was made by the Mexicans, not by the Spanish, because so many tribes joined Cortés that they overwhelmed the Aztecs. And not only that, but one of the main issues that the Aztecs went through were all the diseases that were brought by the Spanish. So that affected a lot. So in the case of Yucatan was something similar. Montejo, that is the one who led the conquest of Yucatan. He was one of the hands of Cortés. He was one of the commanders of Cortés that was in charge of a group of Spanish. So when everything was controlled in the Valley of Mexico, Cortés sent Montejo to Yucatan. And these are the ones who came to Yucatan, and these are the ones who encountered the Mayas who are living here. In the case of Izamal, it was a city that was very poor, disorganized in many ways. So it was easy for the Spanish to get hold of the control of these places. And with the offer of helping them, if there was an enemy, that made Mayas to accept them, and Izamal became an encomienda. In 1543, Izamal became an encomienda, and that encomienda is what is the reward of the Spanish that came here. As there was no gold, they got land to be exploited in the land. So all the products were given to them. The Mayas had to pay tributes to the encomendero, to the church, to the crown, to the state. So they were basically slaves of the Spanish. So this is how Izamal began.
The encomienda, explain one more time what that is.
Encomienda will be the figure of encomienda is a portion of land that was assigned to each one of the Spanish that came here. Remember that Yucatan has no gold. It has no treasure, no richness in that sense of precious metals or gems or jewels or anything like that. So everything that could be used here, the only reward that the Spanish could have gotten on this place was land. And people who wasn't that land was going to be working for them. So this is what an encomienda. Encomienda means like I will lend you this part of the land. Officially, you are not the owner, but behind or under the table, you own everything. And they couldn't own it. They couldn't have slaves. According to the West India's decree of the king, they could not be slaves on the kingdom of Spain. So officially there was no slaves, but behind the scene, they were all slaves.
Absolutely.
And this is how an encomienda started to work. And that encomienda was developing to an estancia when they brought cattle and horses and pigs and sheep and all kinds of different domestic animals. And then they turned into a hacienda when they organized more the production of honey, sugarcane, cotton, maize, wax, and besides the cattle. And after that, around the 19th century, when the War of Castes began and all these events that took place throughout the whole colonial times, the economy collapsed and many of these haciendas became Heineken producers. Actually, Izamal is in a way in the heart of the agave or the Heineken area or region.
Ah, okay.
There are many haciendas surrounding Izamal that used to be producing or growing the agave. And in fact, nowadays in Izamal, there is one of the two distilleries where tequila is made. Of course, what we have said before, tequila, which is made out of the green agave, like the one that we have here, that is in the native of Yucatan, cannot be considered a good tequila. The one that is in Valladolid is the one that is growing the blue agave, and that tequila is supposed to be among the good ones.
Right.
But Izamal has one of them.
Well, let's go back a little bit. Okay, so in Spanish, okay. And I'm sorry for the echo. I'll try to get my question out. Okay, San Antonio de Padua, the convent. Yeah, tell us when that was built, and because that's a very important structure.
Franciscans came to Yucatan by the end of the 1540s. It was a religious order that was in charge of catechizing the Mayas in converting them into the Catholic religion. Landa came about that time, and they ordered to build a few large monasteries in order to accommodate all these monks that were coming from Spain to catechize the Mayas. And those were like the headquarters. In Yucatan, we have three main ones. We have the one in Izamal that is called San Antonio de Padua. We have the one in Valladolid that's called Fray Bernardino de Siena, and the one that is in Mani that is called San Miguel Arcángel. Those are the three main monasteries that were built. The one in Izamal was built between 1549, more or less, they began to build it. In some information mentioned that it was completed by 1561. Other information says that it took longer because they had to have the Chapel of Indians, which is when Mayans were going to church, to mass. And also they have the claustro where the monks were, and they have the church of the Immaculate Conception, which is the one that is the queen of Izamal. And what we see here on the left side of the picture, or on the left side of the picture, that's where the claustro is, that's where the monks were living. And on the right side, right after the main facade, which you can see the wall that is called Espadaña, where the bells are, and there is a vitral, a glass work on the window, there is a little Espadaña just sticking up the wall about halfway between the end to the right and the main Espadaña. That is the Chapel of Indians. That's where the Mayas were going to mass.
Right in here?
Right in there on the right side. You can see that there is a large door entrance in that place right below the small Espadaña, and that is the Chapel of Indians, or that used to be the Chapel of Indians.
Okay.
So San Antonio de Padua is the name of the monastery, but the church is the Immaculate Conception. Now, this particular atrium that we see here is the second largest in the whole world. It's got around 7,000 square meters, almost 8,000 square meters. And it's the second largest after the one in the Vatican, in St. Peter Basilica.
And can we actually go in and see it?
Yeah, you can see it. You can. The only place that you cannot walk through once you are here will be at the claustro, because Izamal is the only one of the few places in the whole country where we can still see the monks. There are
Okay.
some monks in charge. It's like a seminar because there will be a lot of students that are called legos, which are the ones which are being prepared to become monks. And this is where you can find it. They don't live there. They use it as a seminar, as a school. They live in another house that is about 3 blocks away from this one.
Wow.
And this atrium is so large, and the idea was that it will be used by the monks in order to catechize the Mayas, to teach them jobs, activities like carpentry, like tailors, or any other kind of activity that could perform by them, so they could do something productive.
Right.
And of course, teaching them the new religion, which was the main idea.
Absolutely. So in Izamal, there is a statue of Diego de Landa. And when we talk about money, we know that Diego de Landa is a character that is very controversial in history. Can you explain to us why there's a statue? First, review who is Diego de Landa.
Landa was the man who brought the Inquisition to Yucatan. He is the one who was in charge in all the catechizing programs of the monks, the Franciscans, in order to get all the Mayas converted. And he was a very tough man in many ways. He punished a lot the Mayas who resisted the new religion, the ones that were not accepted to be catechized in many ways. And he was known to be a kind of a man that was very cruel in many ways. In fact, the same encomenderos complained against Landa. Some of the monks complained against Landa because of the way how he was mistreating the Mayas. The encomenderos burned the chapel in Valladolid twice as a protest against Landa.
The Spanish,
because the way how Landa was punishing the Mayas, and it was affecting the production of the encomiendas. Right. Some of these encomenderos complained against Landa because he mistreated the workers or the Mayas. They didn't do it because they were really considered or they were concerned about what was happening to the Mayas on themselves. They concerned that their production was diminished by the punishment. And based on that, and also some of the complaints of other monks, and also the bishop Toral that was in Yucatan, he didn't like Landa. So all that together forced the situation that Landa was sent back to Spain to a trial after he did all this act of faith and all these kind of things. So he was sent back to Spain to a trial. He managed to get out of it unharmed, but he couldn't come back to Yucatan until Toral died. When Toral died, the bishop, that's when Landa was able to come back to Yucatan.
Wow.
And he said that he regretted what he has done and all this kind of excuses and apologies. And he wrote a book that is known as Relation of Things of Yucatan. That has been used as one of the basis of understanding some of the situations that the Mayas were living, or the way how the Mayas were living, or part of the history. But this is something that is controversial too, because Landa was when Landa was here, the civilization was practically gone. The knowledge has been lost in all these codexes. Landa burned several of them, and the ones that were never found, the ones that are still lost, that I don't think if we ever find any of those will be in good condition because of all the time that has gone. And the humidity and all the conditions might have been already damaged them to the point that probably couldn't be deciphered or read or even hold them. They might be falling in pieces because of the humidity and all this time that has gone. Right. So all this kind of situation, Landa wrote a book, and a lot of people have been using that, but there was controversial questions about it and situations on that has to be really, I would say, analyze and read it carefully and compare with other writings and try to see the other versions, not only the version that is written by the winners, which is normally a rule. History written by the winners, and it will be their version, not exactly what the version could have been really. Absolutely. In the case of Izamal, what they did, as it happened in most of the cities, in most of the places, every single village that we have in Yucatan, every single town that we have in Yucatan, most likely was a Maya settlement.
Yeah.
which with the arrival of the Spanish and the growth of the region and more people coming, colonizing and all that, these particular cities or Mayan villages that were with Maya buildings and all these kind of things were disappearing. They were using the stones from the Maya buildings to build churches, to build houses. So gradually, the cities, the original cities were disappearing. In Izamal, we can still find about 5 or 6 buildings that can be visited by people who go to Izamal, spend a day. You have the Kinichkakmo, that is huge. That's one of the, as I told you, the 3rd largest in volume in the whole country. But also there are a few other that can be visited. And all that is in Izamal. But you can see how on the church, you can see some stones that have remains of the Maya carvings. That means that those stones were extracted from other buildings to be used in the new ones. And the church in Izamal and the city hall in Izamal, those ones were built on top of Maya buildings. So they were using the platforms as a foundation, and on top of them, they built the church and the houses or the city hall.
Okay, so going back to Fray Diego de Landa, so why do we see a statue to him in Izamal?
Interest, you know, that there's people who defend Landa. Of course, the church defends Landa. They say the Landa brought the life,
this day.
the culture, exactly, brought the life, brought the culture, saved the souls, and he did a part. I mean, we cannot deny that he did something good, but what he had done bad was more than he has done good in many ways. But there's people who defend him, and that's his statue right there.
Right. Yeah, it was surprising for me to see that statue there.
You can see
very
always there are writings that some people will be defending him, other ones will be criticizing him.
Sure.
There's always the 2 sides of the history.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, Carlos, when we go to Izamal, how should we go about getting a really good tour or taking ourselves on a tour?
You got ways to do that. If you want to go, if you don't want to drive, you want to have somebody that will explain you everything that you're going to be seeing, that will show you the different parts of it, then you should go on a tour.
Right.
Because in Izamal, the problem is in Izamal is there are some people which are working as guides, local guides, but not all of them can speak English enough, so you can get some information that will be complete, or at least something that will give you a pretty good idea of what you're looking at. Once you get to Izamal, if you are with a guide, you're going to be seeing the most important parts of it. Then you can have lunch. There's a couple of restaurants in Izamal which are just amazing, that you can have one of the best Yucatan food that you can get in Yucatan will be in Izamal.
And what are they called?
One of them is called Kinich. That is right next to the Maya building, to the Kinichkakmo. That's why it's got the name. And that place is spectacular. I mean, the food is so delicious. But remember that on these times, if you go on the weekend, you go on a Saturday or Sunday, make a reservation. Because there's so many people, and there are limits now on the numbers of people that can be at the same time in some of these places.
So so there's
it would be advisable to call and make a reservation. Huh?
Right. Is there another place you have to
ask your guide to make the reservation for you?
Right. But okay, is there another restaurant that you also would recommend?
Yes, there's another one that is on the main street as you enter Izamal, right next to the Parque de los Cañones, the Canyons Park, which is a small park with 2 small chapels on the right side as you enter Izamal, right exactly where you begin to get into what is known as the historical center. Izamal is all painted in yellow. Or at least it's a mandatory to have what is known as a historical center of Izamal, which is the central part of the city, all painted in yellow. Once you are out of that particular section of Izamal, you are allowed to use any color that you want. Many people still use the yellow, which is really nice. But a second that paints in that place, that's the restaurant on the right side. And it's a beautiful place too. And food is good in that place.
Do you know the name?
Remember if it's Los Frailes or Izamatul or Izamal or something like that. I just
I sprang it.
But it's the first one right next to the Park of the Canyons.
Okay. Right next to the Park of the Canyon. Yeah, the
Exactly. There's 2 small chapels on the right side, and at the end of the park, you will see a wooden house, beautiful on the corner, on the end, on the far corner, and right on the corner, right on the street, you will see the restaurant. It's got a name fully visible.
Okay.
And that one is really also a good place. It's a good choice. And
Okay,
if you
so
go on
why?
your own, huh?
Go ahead.
If you go on your own, then what you can do is you got choices. You can rent one of these motorbikes with 4 wheels that you
The
can rent in one of the
ATV.
hotels that is on the side of the monastery,
Right.
and you can go around. And in that place, there is a guy that goes along with the people riding the bikes, and he's leading them, and he's telling you he's one of the few guys that can speak a little English, speak English, and give you information on that. So you can take a tour using that, or you can either rent a bicycle. Izamal is really small, and if you like bicycles, that would be a good way to do it.
Sure.
And besides that, you got so many other things around Izamal that you can also visit. Like if you can go on the way from Merida to Izamal, you're going to be passing by two small villages which are called Quimbila and Kitilcum. In those two places, you can find handicraft, which are some of the best embroiderers that you can find in Yucatan. You can find them in that there. There are several factories, several places where you can buy all kind of clothes, embroidered and typical clothing, and they also work with wood. Izamal has some craftsmen which are just amazing. And a couple of them are, or three of them are included on the book that was printed by Foundation Banamex,
Okay.
which is related to the master craft in Mexico, or the masters of craft in Mexico, and they are included. One in particular has some sort of jewelry that he makes out of certain seeds, and also the thorn of the henequen, and he has won prizes of designing jewelry with that kind of material.
Wow.
And if you go on the weekends, for sure, you're gonna find it practically every day. But on the weekends, you'll find every single craft people in Izamal will be in the main square. They have the
Okay.
small stand, so you can see a lot of the things that they can do. But also, you have people that make crafts out of wood. They make miniatures. They make all the kinds of. Another one that was working with aluminum, this kind of things. So there are quite a few. They are right by the city hall. On the corner of the city hall, there's the tourism board or the tourism office of Izamal. You should stop there as you enter the city, and they will give you maps. And in those maps, you can find everything marked and how to get there. As I told you, Izamal is really small and very easy to move around.
Right.
And either you ride on a motorbike, or you ride a motorbike. I don't know if you're going to be able to visit all these places because you have a time, you have a schedule on the tour. But if you rent a bike, you can go on your own pace, so you can stay as long as you want in each one of the places and enjoy it more.
Right. Okay, so why the yellow color?
Versions. Some people say that when the Pope came, Juan Pablo came in 1993, because of the arrival of the Pope, and the yellow is one of the colors that is used by the Vatican on the flag and all this. They painted the whole city in yellow. I do remember that the city was painted long before yellow, before he came. And in fact, some of the information, some of the chronicles mention that since the end of the 19th century, it was already painted in yellow. And then why yellow? Because we got two main colors in the Yucatan that was easy, or were easy to make, because they're made with dirt and lime, which is that yellow, that's kind of ochre, and also the red that is called the hacienda red. They were made with dirt and lime. So those ones are really easy to make around here. But what could happen? The red is kind of aggressive. It's kind of a strong. The yellow is a milder color. It's softer. So probably they choose the yellow one. But some people said it was because of the Pope arrival. The other ones said no. The fact is that, as always, there are controversial information or controversial versions of this one. And Izamal also, it was the 11th town in Mexico that was converted or named a magical town. And it happened in 2002. We got now 4 in Yucatan. We got Valladolid, we have Izamal, we have Mani, and we have Cisal.
And can you tell us why is it a Pueblo Mágico?
Pueblo Mágico, it was a denomination that was created by the tourism board in Mexico in order to promote places that will be having heritage, the native heritage, the traditional, the original heritage, with a lot of traditions, with a lot of folklore, a lot of the work of these people in craft, in ceremonies, and everything that is related to that culture, architecture in the city. And they should have some kind of infrastructure for tourism, like hotels, and restaurants and services and tours, activities that were arranged for them. So when they got all these conditions and they classified for that, they were named a magical town. And what happened then? The government gives them extra funds in order to keep all these activities functioning, in order to keep everything perfectly well presented and restore and recover, and also they could promote more, and they add them into programs in order to be promoting all these magical towns. Nowadays, I understand that we have about 132 magical towns in the whole country.
In the whole Mexico.
In the whole Mexico. In Campeche has one of them that is called Palizada, which is a beautiful place. If you ever have a chance, go in Google, look for Palizada, and you're going to be seeing some of the buildings which are known in other countries, which were represented right in Palizada. It's right on the river, in a river bank. You can go by road, but not on the rainy season, because they get flooded. It's part of on the mangroves, which are called Centla. That's part of the estuary, the mangroves of Centla. So in those cases, the easy way will be going by boat from Ciudad del Carmen to Palizada.
So, okay, my last question about Izamal. The Mayan temple, which is also very close. Correct. You can the ruin that's in. You can ride your bike there as well.
Yep.
Yeah. So when you go to Izamal, you go to the main square, to the monastery, the ruin.
You can go up the building. Remember that the building has hours also from 8 to 5, but at 4 p.m. they don't allow you to go up.
Yeah.
So probably the best way to do it will be going to climb that one. Do it at the very beginning before it's too hot.
Okay.
If you're going with a guide, just tell the guide that you would like to go up, but it has to be done right after you arrive to Izamal, so that way you're going to avoid the heat. And when it's getting a little hotter, you're going to be at the monastery, you're going to be at the church, that is most of it covered, so you're going to be getting away from the sun and from the heat.
Right. Well, I think that's about it for today. We'll go ahead and finish up.
And no, I didn't mention it, but it's clearly obvious that when I mentioned about the craft people, which you can find there, shopping is excellent if you want to get souvenirs in Izamal.
Okay.
There's a few stores around the square. There's one called Hecho a Mano that is incredible. I love that place because they got a lot of craft, especially from Chiapas. They get masks made out of wood. They make clothing. They make all different kind of things that are coming from Chiapas. They get alebrijes from Oaxaca. They get all the kind of things. That one is called Hecho a Mano. It's right across the main square, and it's in a hotel that is called El Ángel, that is on the side of the city hall. And that store is good. Also, there's another one on the street that goes to the Kinich Cacmo, the restaurant, to the Kinich. Also on the right side of the street, about half a block away from the square that is called Cinco de Mayo. That is the side square that is in Izamal, where the name of Izamal, the big one, is on the middle of the park. It's about half a block on the right side, which you can also get things out of agave, sosquil, enecan, and also all the kinds of crafts in that place. So Izamal has a lot of things that you can do in a day tour. And if you're gonna go on your own, go on your car if you want to, or if you don't want to do that, there is a bus service that you can take early in the morning and spend the whole day and get back in the evening to Mérida. And the line is called Noreste. And that lives on 50 by 67.
60 and 57.
50 and 67. 5067. And it's a block away from San Cristobal Church or San Cristobal Park.
Okay, that's easy. Yeah.
So that people doesn't want to drive, or they don't have a car and they don't want to rent a car. They want to go on the public bus. They can do it. It's called Noreste.
Noreste.
That's the line. That's the bus line.
Great. Well, this is a lot of information, and I think what I'll do is maybe kind of write it up in a concise way in a post, so people can kind of know all of these tips that you're giving them about Izamal.
Sure, and they're gonna enjoy it because that is a beautiful city, and it's so close to Mérida that it's really worth it to go one day.
Absolutely.
Even if you don't want to go on if I had a chance, I might not go on Sunday. Because Sunday there will be a lot of people. I might go during the weekdays. There's not so many people at the restaurant. You can be sure that you're going to get always a place at the restaurant. there will be not so many people in the place on the area, so you can get bicycles easier, not so crowded as in Sunday. So probably if people can do it on the weekdays, that will be easier and easier and nicer.
Right. Well,
Not
great.
having to wait a couple of hours in the restaurant waiting until there's a table clear so you can sit and eat something. And if you're not going to be driving, then you can have some wine and some beers. You don't have to worry about the police.
Exactly. All right. Yeah, so Carlos, we'll go ahead and finish up. And I'm seeing a couple of comment here by David. So very interesting, Carlos and Stephanie. Thanks for sharing more Yucatan history. Thanks, David.
No, it's a pleasure. Always. And if they have more questions, they can always ask you or write me or write you, and we'll just get it.
Exactly. And give us your email one more time.
Balam. Balambe. The last 3 words are BEH9. Balambe 9. That's yahoo.com.mx.
Okay. So
.com.mx. There you go.
Balambe9@yahoo.com.
Correct. You can speak Maya now.
Yes, I'm learning.
And that name of Balambe means the jaguar path.
Okay.
Remember Sakbe?
Yes.
Okay, you got Be, and Balam is jaguar.
Path is big.
Be is road or path. The road.
Okay.
Sak is white, so Sakbe is a white road because it was made with limestone, so it's white.
Right. Well, very good. So, of course, here is Carlos' email if you want to get in contact with him. And I will do everything in my power to change this or to figure out what this echo is about. We tried it before. We couldn't figure it out. So next time it'll be fixed, I promise.
No echo?
Luckily, Carlos can just talk. I don't need to say that. All right. Thanks so much, Carlos, again for being with us.
Thank you for all the ones that join us. Thank you.
All right. We'll see everybody soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.